Hey students, you are going to be drawing a sphere today. So as you watch this video, you're going to watch it until a little screen pops up that says pause. And then when it says pause, I want you to pause and then you're going to draw. And when you're done following that step in drawing, bloop, press play again. And then you can watch the next set of instructions. I'm going to start off by sharing some vocabulary with you that you will need to know for this assignment. Okay, we're going to talk about some vocabulary related to a sphere, which is what we're drawing. So you can see here that this is a light source. This is where the light is coming in from in this. The highlight is where the spot where the light hits, and it's the brightest spot. This is just a light area where there's still a lot of light reaching. The shadow is down here where it's getting a bit darker, but it's still not as dark as it's going to get, which is going to be the core shadow here. And then the reflected light is here where it gets a little bit lighter again because light from the light source is bouncing down, hitting the table, bouncing back up onto the object. And then this is called the cast shadow because that shadow is being cast on the floor. Hey students, let's talk a little bit about light source and reflected light. Right now my sphere is sitting here and the light source is a window and it is coming in this direction. You can see it's creating a highlight here, a light area here, a shadow here, the core shadow, and then this little cast shadow on the ground, which is pretty small here. So I want to talk about reflected light as well. So reflected light is when the light comes in from the light source from this direction, whoop, 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 and it bounces off of something else and then it hits your object. So I'm going to bring an object in to show you what reflected light looks like. So look for the object to get lighter. So do you see how I made my core shadow go away by bringing in reflected light? And I can make it come back by removing it. And I can actually change the angle by getting closer or farther. And I can make my reflected light more strong or less strong by moving a reflective object closer or farther. That is a little bit about light. Hey students, I have a little more vocabulary. So I want to introduce this graphite pencil to you. So graphite pencil just means that the stuff inside is graphite and there are some numbers and letters on it. So there's a 6 and a B. The B stands for, it indicates that the pencil is soft and that it will make black marks. The 6 indicates that it's a pretty dark black pencil. So the B's go all the way from like 1 to 9 plus, and a 9 is like the super dark black, and a 1 is like a little bit black, okay? So 6B is a pretty dark pencil. Compared to something like your normal pencil, which is an HB pencil, see the little HB there. The HB just means that the pencil is hard, which means it stays to a point and that it is black. The 6B pencil is not very hard. It's not going to stay sharp super long. So you're going to be using a 6B pencil because it's going to get so nice and dark. It'll feel different than your regular number 2 HB pencils though. This is a blending stump. You're going to be using this to blend your pencil marks so they get smooth on the paper. This is a tissue. The tissue will also be used for blending. All right, so my first step is going to be to draw a circle. And I'm going to move my hand back on my pencil and hold it gently, and I'm moving my whole arm. I'm not moving my wrists, and I'm moving it in circles. And when I get a kind of circular shape going, I am gently lowering my hand onto the paper. All right, so since I kind of overlapped when I made my circle, I'm going to just go in and tidy things up with an eraser. I'm going to kick a little time lapse on now on these parts that take me a little longer. And then I'm tidying things up by redrawing with my hand at the back of my pencil very lightly the sphere. Now I'm going to add my light source because I won't know where to put my shading if I don't have a source of light. So I'm just going to draw a cute little light on the top left-hand side of my sphere. And so that means that my highlight will then be on the top left of my sphere. So there is my light source. Next, I want to lay out where my cast or my core shadow, my table, and my cast shadow are going to be. So I made a little dot in the middle of my sphere. And I basically made what ends up looking like kind of an almond shape around it. And then that bottom right area is going to be my core shadow, kind of, and that's my reflected light there. So for my table, I'm going to make a line just straight across the bottom part of my sphere there. And I'm going to make it look like the sphere is overlapping the table. And again, I'm not moving my wrist, I'm moving my whole arm. And I'm just creating a light line back behind my circle. And then I just made kind of a line going from my light source down, and that's going to indicate how long my cast shadow is going to be. And for my cast shadow, same thing. I'm not moving my wrist. I am just moving my arm in ovals this time instead of a circle, and then lowering. And I like it. So there are a few different ways that we can add value to our drawings, and I'm going to show you them now. This is not extensive, but in general, some really well-known ones are making these lines like this, which is called hatching, making those same type of lines, but then another line going across it the other direction, which is called cross-hatching, making lots of little dots. The less dots you make, the lighter it is. The more dots you can make it completely black. That's called stippling. And then scumbling is when you make these, they look almost random, but you do them in a consistent way so that it ends up looking intentional. You can make them very black or very light depending on how many you make. And scumbling is what I'm going to use now, combined with like maybe a teeny bit of hatching. But in general, I'm going to be scumbling. Here is an example of like what scumbling might look like on a mouth. Or here's a horse. So scumbling can be pretty cool. So I'm going to do scumbling, and then I'm going to blend it. What I want to do now is add some value to this circle so it becomes a sphere. I'm just going to do a little last minute tidying up with my eraser. And now I'm going to take my 6B pencil and add some little overlapping loops to the core of my shadow. And I'm trying to spread them out and make them even. I'm holding my pencil toward the back on a strong angle so that I'm not making a ton of lines. It's more like I'm making these sweeping loops that just cover the area with value. I did not touch the highlight. I left that completely white, but I did go up into the top, the lighter part of the shadow, and I added a little value. And now I'm going in and I'm going to add another layer of value to the core of the shadow, and I'm slowly releasing pressure each time that I kind of make a pass with my pencil. I grabbed a little shield there for my hand so that I can keep from making a huge mess on my paper with my hand. We are back now, and what I'm going to do is take my blending stump, and I'm actually going to start up in this light area using the side, like the flat edge of it, so that I can make some scumbly type marks mimicking my original pencil lines. And I'm going to kind of just scumble my way from the lightest to the darkest area. The reason I'm going from lightest to darkest is because you can see how dirty my blending stump and my tissue get right away. And I even demonstrated that up there on the top of the paper. The blending stump is so dirty now it could be used as a drawing tool. Next, I'm going in again, making more scumbly marks, adding another layer to the core of the shadow, and then blending it once again. So what you'll do is you will add layers of value and then smooth them out and blend them over and over again. And then I'm dabbing with my eraser. The next thing I'm going to do is shade my cast shadow. So I'm making it darkest when it's closest to my sphere. And then it's going to kind of gradually get lighter as it gets farther away. And when I blend this, I'm going to blend it with a tissue because I want the blending to look really nice and soft. And I don't want there to be any lines in there that sometimes the blending stump can leave behind. All right, so my next step is going to be to outline my sphere, and I'm outlining it using my eraser. I'm not outlining like I normally would with a pencil because that would flatten my sphere. Outlining it with an eraser is going to help enhance the 3D quality, which is what I want to do. All right, so next I'm going to evaluate my own work. So I'm holding it back for myself and I'm looking at it and I'm okay with it. I like the crisp line around the edge, but I do not like where I can see the line here between my core shadow and the regular shadow. It's too bold for me. I want it to be a more gradual transition. So I'm going to go in and try to correct that. Because I want to get rid of that rough transition, I'm just going to darken the area that was too light and then blend it with a tissue. And now I'd like to darken my core shadow and leave a little area of reflected light down where the table is. I'll blend it once more with tissue, and I'm going to dab out a few more areas near the highlight, and I'm going to reiterate my table there, and I'm done. Okay, we're going to talk about some vocabulary related to a sphere, which is what we're drawing. So you can see here that this is a light source. This is where the light is coming in from in this. The highlight is where the spot where the light hits, and it's the brightest spot. This is just a light area where there's still a lot of light reaching. The shadow is down here where it's getting a bit darker, but it's still not as dark as it's going to get, which is going to be the core shadow here. And then the reflected light is here where it gets a little bit lighter again because light from the light source is bouncing down, hitting the table, bouncing back up onto the object. And then this is called the cast shadow because that shadow is being cast on the floor.